child just got home. So I wanted to share this poem with you. I read it the other day, but it's so good that it deserves a reread, and I'm sure, I think most of you haven't heard it. It's Pablo Neruda, and it's Keeping Quiet. He says, now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm the whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it's about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves. Now I'll count to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. So you could take a couple more breaths here, slipping into that substrata of stillness. And then we'll start today with sort of a square pose, but it's sort of a soft square. I'll show you. You're going to take your legs and have your right leg in, like my sexy socks outfit, right leg in front, and it'll be a little further away than the left leg, which will come in close. Almost like Baddha Konasana, but a little bit asymmetrical. And then to start with, before you do anything, can you just bring your attention to the shoulders, the upper back, the neck, the jaw, these places that sort of habitually resist relaxing, and just invite them to soften maybe just a little bit more. And you could start with the head dropping. The head could start to roll down. Let your jaw release even more, your cheeks soften, maybe even puff out your cheeks a couple times. Try to letting tension go in the jaw. And then little by little, you start to melt your way down. You can walk the hands out any amount forward. Any sort of props that you want to have with you, that's always welcome. And then we just enjoy the presence of our own being and this breath, how in the midst of it all, this body is being breathed. It's kind of incredible, isn't it? It just goes on. So let yourself be breathed. You might just notice if the mind feels cluttered. What can we put aside? It might not be everything, but maybe some things can be put aside. You could notice as well how you fit into your body. Ideally, the body would feel like your most favorite comfortable clothes. But sometimes it feels like too tight jeans or something. So could you breathe in such a way that your body starts to feel more like the softest piece of cashmere, like your skin is just silk draped over your bones, like a piece of fabric hanging over a chair. For the last few moments, check in if there's anywhere in your physical body that you're gripping. And you can invite in a bit more ease. Do a body scan, top to bottom, inside to outside. Always with those habitual spots, the jaw, teeth, neck and shoulders, and then the maybe not so habitual spots. Who knows where it might be? The elbows, the backs of the ears, the skull, the toes. And little by little, you can come back. You can walk your hands back in, start to peel your body away from the ground. And so the way I teach is that in between each shape, you take a resting shape just to wash that off. So as much as you can, you come back to a state of feeling neutral. And so for some people, often the windshield wiper knees works really well. But there's no law that you have to do that. You could do anything at all for a minute. That oh my goodness, Lola and her dog have matching sweaters on. That's the best thing I've ever seen.
What?
Love matching sweaters.
What?
The bottom left corner. Well, the dog's gone now.
Okay.
So washing the knees or moving the head around or anything at all that feels like you're just going through the rinse cycle, going through the wash, letting that one go. And then we could take it over to the other side. So the same thing. So this time your left leg will be further in front. Your right leg will come further towards your pelvis, a little asymmetrical Baddha Konasana type position. It's actually square pose, but we don't need to call it anything at all. Go ahead and take the time to really roll down through the spine, to release through the upper body like you're just snow melting until you eventually find your own deepest point, whatever that might be. And Yin Yoga, the first tenet of Yin Yoga is that you move towards your edge, but you don't move beyond it. I'm trying to find the balance between relaxation and sensation. And so when you meet that place, then you live in it. And the longer you stay in it, the more information you get. Zen master Suzuki Roshi, he said, when you realize the fact that everything changes and you find your composure in the midst of it, that is well-being. In the midst of it all, here we are being breathed. A few more moments here to slip under the surface into that substrata of stillness, the floor of the ocean. It's dark and quiet. And little by little, you come back, move slowly. That feeling after a yin pose, that feeling of the body being compressed and then opening. Oh, it's really something, isn't it? It's pretty magical. So you just feel your own body, how it reacts to the practice. The energy, the quality of your vibration. And you could move, you could wash it away any which way. There's no wrong answer. You could rock, you could move your head, you could take any sort of counter pose. We are going to do a back bend in a moment. So if you're feeling the need for one, it's coming. I was watching this Yin Yoga class on YouTube today, and all these people, there was like 30 of them. And in every pose, they were totally still. And I was like, did he hire robots or something? It looks so not real to me. So I encourage you all, like, you don't have to be told, you're also still too. But some of you are like moving and I love it. I'm sure some of you are like having to yell at your kids or whatever's happening. So I did do CD kind of like mine wanted to make popcorn and I had to be like, no. So, move if you need to move. If you're in the middle of it and you want to explore something, you're always free to move. So that said, we're going to come into a puppy pose. We'll do a puppy and a child's pose. So it'll be like 2 minutes puppy, 3 minutes or so child's pose. But that said, puppy pose is pretty intense. It's melting heart pose. It's called in yin usually. And so if it turns out that being in that back bend is just a little too much, then at any point you can make the transition into the child's pose, okay? And we'll all meet there eventually. So for the melting heart pose, you could use a block if you wanted to, or a towel rolled up, or a pillow, but you don't have to. So coming onto knees, arms extended, and then the upper body just like a hammock. And so your hips are perched over your knees, or sort of, and you could use the block if you have one, or a couple of books even, or a pillow underneath your head. You can even stack your arms, rest your head on your arms. So again, no wrong answers. You do it the way your body needs to do it, and you can take as long as you need to. Sometimes the whole first minute or two of a yin pose is just getting into it. And that's really okay too. You take as long as you need and change if you need to. Is it possible to let the heart soften? And if it feels like it's been in a cage, the rib cage, holding it tightly, could you loosen that cage a bit? Rodney Yee, years and years ago, he said this thing in a class that I never forgot. He said, if you were going to hold your heart in your hand, how would you hold it? Checking in, maybe there's 5% or 10% more that you could soften. You let the spine be like a hammock between two trees. You could breathe down into your belly really deeply. So you could start to transition into a child's pose if you haven't already. Little by little, walk your way back and bring yourself to rest more towards your heels, the knees, any amount open or closed as you like. You could always, if you have props and you wanted to lie over a pillow or a bolster, you could. It's a full moon today. Full moon is in Libra. So it's all about balance. I think for a lot of us, this quarantine is showing how to balance. Maybe we were outwardly focused. And what a lovely thing, this full moon coming to remind us to let the inner transformation, the inner work match the outer work. And then go ahead and begin to come on out. You can crawl your way slowly to hands and knees. You can move any which way. You might take your spine into some cat and cows for a few moments, arching and rounding, turning to look in any direction. Give yourself time. There's no urgency here. There's no rush. That's one thing we seem to have quite a lot of right now is time, most of us. So how lovely to really be patient with everything you do. One thing I've noticed, I don't know about you all, but little ordinary things have become really important and beautiful, like making coffee in the morning. So I've turned it into this sort of really beautiful ritual. And I was talking to a friend, and she was saying she's been doing this thing where every time she goes out for a walk, I know a lot of us are going for walks, she collects a rock and is just stacking them and making this really sweet and simple, beautiful little sculpture out of rocks. And I thought that's a really healing thing I think that we can do, is to create little rituals for ourselves, especially with ordinary, mundane things. Turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. So let's take a twist. The twist is twisted roots on your back, and this twist has all kinds of variations that you could take. I'll show you the simple way and then one or two variations, and then you can pick. If you need to adjust, you adjust. So just simple is to bring your knees in and drop them to one side. Arms can go to a T, or you can hold your top knee. Right? That's generally the softest way to do it. If you have a blanket, pillow, towel, anything that you want to put between your legs, you could do that. And if you wanted to feel more sensation, then you could wrap the legs, wrap the top leg over the left leg. You choose whichever side you want to go to, it doesn't matter. And if there are other variations that you know and you want to take, you could. And just relaxing in your own presence. Allowing that body to fit like comfortable clothes. So you could allow your muscles to loosen a bit off your bones. The muscles anywhere are gripping the bones. See if you can let them unclench, loosen their hold. And the same with the skin that covers your muscles. Could you breathe right underneath the skin, right between your muscles and skin, so that your skin can more easily glide along the surface of your muscles. And you could even breathe in between your bones. Imagine the breath coming right in between your bones, making spaces there that your bones could move apart. You can begin the journey back really slowly. As you call yourself back and you find some way to wash that off, you notice perhaps the effect of the stretching and the compression and the twisting on your body, on your tissues. What a gift to feel these things. What a gift to be breathed. So let's make the journey over to the other side, which it might look the same as your first side, or it might look very different, and that's really okay too. Slowly, slowly, no urgency at all. So allowing yourself to be breathed without needing to manipulate or control it for a few moments, just the soft breath that flows in and out. This breath right here in the midst of everything. This one breath. And then you could try this for a few breaths to see how it feels. And if you don't enjoy, you could always just let it go and come back to breathing naturally. But really focusing on the feeling of the breath coming in through the nasal passages up into the sinuses and filling your skull. And a few breaths like that, where with each one, you really kind of witness the presence of the breath in your skull, in your nasal passages. Maybe you even bring it in a little bit more deeply, like you're washing your brain, washing the inside of your skull. And then after any amount of that, you could keep going, or whenever you're ready, you could come back to just simple breathing. Coming back very slowly. Feeling how your body calls you to move. Listen for the call and then you respond. You honor your body, respect your body. So feeling your dust settle, give yourself time. We will come to sit next, but there's no hurry. So if you need more time, take more time. And as you feel ready, you can come up to sit. And we could take the butterfly pose, which we sort of hinted at in the very beginning, but this time more symmetrical. So feet can be together. Well, actually, I'll give you two options. So classic way is to have the feet together and eventually we'll fold forward. But if you wanted to try it different, you could flex the feet and open them, maybe, hip width apart or so, and have your legs a little bit less bent, slightly out longer in front of you, with the hands coming perhaps underneath. Hands can be on the floor, they can hold your ankles, and you could take the shape that way a little bit wider. Otherwise, you do it more simple, and it's totally legal to change your mind. So if you try it one way and you need to switch and do this one, go for it, that's fine. So you can let your head melt, your body release from the top down like a waterfall. We'll, if you're taking that variation, we'll just do it for half the time. Then we'll come up and have a little interlude and then take the regular butterfly. So I was listening to Jack Kornfield this morning, and he told this story about all these little kids who were playing together, and they were all by a river bed building sandcastles together. And all the kids, each one built their own sandcastle, and they're sort of like protective about their own sandcastles. And they would go and look at each other's, but be like, don't touch mine, and kind of defend their own. And if somebody messed somebody else's up, they might pull their hair or something, get in little kid fights. And this went on until evening, when they knew they had to be home for dinner. So as all the kids prepared to leave, suddenly their sandcastles didn't matter anymore. Nobody cared, and they just kicked their own sandcastle over, and they left, and they went home to eat. And he says, he's the joker, and he says that's a very ancient Buddhist story, which it may not be, but definitely ancient Buddhist teaching about impermanence and what really matters. All these things that we sort of hold and treasure and want and wish for, are all going to change. And that's not to bum you out, right? The Buddha would talk about how we're going to die, not to bum you out, but to remind you to live. And we talk about impermanence as a reminder to recognize its fluidity and take refuge in what's impermanent. So go ahead and come on up. We'll do a little interlude here. So if you had your feet wider, you can bring them together and take your hands, interlace them if you can behind your back. If not, you can just reach them back. but just finding an arch in the spine here, really lifting the chest and broadening across the front of the shoulders. You might even lift your chin or look around. You could reach your knuckles back in space. You can reach them even up towards the sky. So, and you know, this isn't necessary. You could also do it with your hands on the ground, but just for finding some counter to all of that roundness and that forward folding so that you kind of blossom open again. And to bring a little energy to it. You know, yin is so wonderful. Like all I want to do is just lay around when I do yoga. But the energy can get stagnant if it's not punctuated here and there with a little bit of energetic stuff. So one more little breath here where you could really press through the arms and charge the heart open. And then let's go back into that butterfly. So feet together this time, and you can make your way into a really soft, rounded forward fold. You might notice what stories the mind is wanting to tell you, what memories might come up. And if there's anything you can put aside, and if there's not, you can just let them be there. You know, it's not about making your mind perfectly empty. It's about just making friends with everything that comes. Allowing for the last few moments here, gravity to take you. You can imagine your brain softening, unfolding. Its creases not quite so tight. Your hands, maybe they can soften a bit. The palms, the fingers, maybe the ankles and the feet. And then making your way back, climbing tall with the spine again. Could bring the knees into windshield wipers or anything else that feels right to release. Wash it off. Take as long as you need. Sometimes it feels good just to lay there and be still in between poses. We'll take a short pranayama practice to finish. So if you wanted to lie down, if that's comfortable, you could. But you could choose to sit up too. And if you wanted to, you could put a rolled up blanket if you have one, or a pillow under your knees. That could feel nice. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. So take a few moments to get to where you feel settled on your back or seated. It's kind of nice on your back that you can your diaphragm can really relax when you lie down, which is one benefit for doing pranayama on your back, but seated is not wrong either. But when you're on your back, your diaphragm, which usually is helping stabilize your spine when you're standing, it can really let go when you're on your back. It's not helping you stand up anymore. And so you could take any amount of shifting and snuggling so that you feel like you could drop more deeply into the support beneath you. And you could just notice the quality of your breath. I love it when the cats climb on top of people at this point. So cute. So you notice the breath, and without needing it to be the deepest breath you've ever taken, you just notice the width of it. Can you feel the breath move into the sides of you? As you breathe in, can you feel your ribs press into the skin of your side body and open you out? And you could notice the back of your body on the ground. And notice the inner lining of your back waist. And as you breathe out, could you let the breath come out like it's water seeping down through all the layers of you to your lowest point, that inner lining of your back waist down into the earth. So you breathe in, you feel the breath at the front of you, the top, feel it shimmer. And breathe out, feel the breath like water seep down through your muscles, through your abdominal organs, down through your low back into the floor. And feel the breath in your belly as you breathe. Try to contain the breath, mostly in your low belly, breathing in and out, just to that low belly, letting it open and expand as you inhale, and feeling it fall back towards the low back as you exhale. And little by little, draw the breath up. So with each breath, with each inhale, the breath climbs just a little bit higher. Each breath, finding one more rib to climb up, one more inch of side body rising. The breath climb all the way up towards the armpits. And you still exhale down through the belly organs, down through the inner lining of the back waist into the earth. You can let the breath climb all the way up to the height of your heart, up to your collarbones. Down through the back waist. And we'll do just 2 rounds of Voluma Pranayama. It's a staggered inhalation and a big long exhale. So just clear the way, just breathe in and out a couple of times. Just easy, deep breaths. And then when you're ready to begin the practice, you breathe just 1/3 of the way, just into your low belly, and you pause. Hold that breath in really gently. And then continue, bye Julia. Breathe all the way up through the side ribs up to your armpits and pause there. Feel that second third. And then you can keep going and fill all the way up to the collarbones, to the top of your heart. Complete the inhalation. And when you fill all the way up completely, hold the breath in, but keep your whole outer body really quiet, your face really gentle and soft. And when you need to breathe out, you can breathe it all out from the surface of you down through the layers, down through the inner lining of the back waist into the earth, all the way out. And when you reach the bottom of that breath, just recover, breathe in and out a couple times. And then we'll do that one more time. You have the option. You could just take your Shavasana, be done with pranayama, or you can try one more Voluma. So next breath in, you'll breathe in just that first third, just the low belly and right up to the navel, and you pause and hold it in really tenderly. And then filling up through the side ribs all the way up to the armpit creases where you pause there, soft skin, quiet face. And then all the way up to the collarbones, you fill the whole container of your torso until it's full completely, and you hold the breath in with the lightest touch. And at any point when you feel you need to, before it becomes uncomfortable, empty like water seeping down into the sand, down through the inner lining of the back waist. And then you can really take rest in Shavasana. calling yourself back from the depths. Maybe even just imagining movement before you do it, imagining the fingers wiggling or the toes. And then little movements, tiny joints first, and then the bigger ones. You might climb your knees in and give yourself a hug. You could roll to one side, there's no hurry. As you come on back to sit, just again noticing, does your body feel respected? Does it feel honored? Are you aware of that beautiful substrata of stillness that's always there? Finish with one Om. You can join me if you want, or just listen. Om. Thank you all so very much. So happy to be together. You can unmute yourself if you want to. So just happy to see your faces.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Lola. Oh, where's the dog? There. Okay, if you all didn't see the dog with the matching sweater, you have to see it. It was everything. Hey, thanks for making our night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. I don't have any words.
Bye.
Good.
Bye. Oh, so good to see you, Shayna. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, and she just left, but I hope that was your goal then, right? That is so cool. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much, love.
What was that? Oh, Wednesday?